Tycho Brahe the astronomer was killed by his own nose.
Hark!
You've probably heard of the astronomer Johannes Kepler, who invented one of the first telescopes, but you might not have heard of Tycho Brahe. Hold that thought. You know how people used to believe that the Earth was the center of the universe and that the sun and the other planets revolved around the Earth? And then Copernicus came along and said, no, the Earth and the other planets revolve around the sun. And then the Catholic Church said, no, that's blasphemous. And people started taking sides, like, are you team heliocentric or team geocentric? And then a guy from Denmark named Tycho Brahe came along and said, hold on guys, let's compromise. What if the other planets revolve around the sun, but the sun revolves around the Earth? That way, we can not be blasphemers, but still be scientific. Kinda. Now, Tycho was a weird dude. He was an alchemist, an astrologer who wrote horoscopes. His best friend was a psychic dwarf named Jep, and he had a pet moose that was fed too much beer one night, fell down a flight of steps, and died. But the king of Denmark liked Tycho Brahe and the Tychonic model of the universe so much that he said, here, have an island. And Tycho became the Lord of Ven, legally forcing all the peasant farmers who lived there to be his slaves and build a palace for him called Uraniaborg, dedicated to Urania, the muse of astronomy, and an observatory that had a secret underground alchemy lab beneath it. You might be thinking, Christopher, that's cool and all, but what's up with Tycho Brahe's nose? Well, when Tycho was in college at age 20, he had a quarrel with his third cousin, Manderup Parsberg, and they were going to settle their differences with a duel. Except dueling was illegal where they lived, and if they fought in broad daylight, they'd be caught, so they were going to fight under the cover of darkness. Do you ever wonder why duelists fight with a hand in the air like this? Well, if you fight like this, you're a wider target, like there is more of you to hit. But if you hold this arm back, you make yourself more narrow and you're a smaller target. And there's different ways you can hold this arm too, like you can have it back here, you can have it behind your back, you can do the Peter Pan. When I fight my mortal enemies to the death, I have it over my heart like this to protect my vital organs. But in times when dueling was illegal, people would have to fight at night so that they're less likely to be caught, and they would use their other arm to hold their lantern so that they can see who they're lunging at. But see, Tycho and Manderup didn't think that far ahead, like they were just fighting in pitch darkness. They couldn't see what they were slashing at. They kind of just gave up fighting after a while. Like, neither of them died, but Manderup cut Tycho's face so badly that Tycho ended up losing most of his nose, and he went the rest of his life wearing a brass prosthetic nose that was held on with paste. Now, 34 years after that, when Tycho was 54, he died, and there are a couple theories as to why. And the most likely one is that when Tycho was at a banquet in Prague one day, he really had to go to the bathroom, but he wasn't about to get up and relieve himself because that would have been considered a breach in etiquette at that particular banquet. And so he just held it in because he was a very proud man. But you know what they say, pride comes before a ruptured bladder, because that's what happened, and then he died later of urinary failure. But while that's the most plausible cause of death, the other theory, and the more fun theory in my opinion, is that he was killed by his nose. So the idea goes that because he's an alchemist, he's working with various metals, including the highly toxic mercury. And in the 1990s, scientists actually found high traces of mercury on Tycho Brahe's remains. And you can see, like in this painting, how his skin is turned gray compared to his flesh-colored nose, which is a sign of mercury poisoning. And this would actually explain some of his crazier tendencies, because he would literally be mad as a hatter, because hatters made their hats with mercury, which would make them go crazy. Well, the theory goes that Tycho made his nose using mercury, so for the rest of his life, he's breathing in all these poisonous particles, and there's mercury particles all up in his fantastic mustache, so he's breathing in poison through his death whiskers, and it eventually killed him. Oh no! Funny how an astronomer and an astrologer would be killed by mercury. And actually, for a while, because of the mercury evidence, some people suspected Tycho was poisoned by his apprentice. And remember how I said that Tycho was a really proud guy? Well, later in life, he started hiding all of his notes from his apprentice. Like, no, this is my science, don't you dare try to steal it and take credit for all my work. But then he died, and his apprentice, a young man by the name of Johannes Kepler, took his notes and used them to begin his own scientific studies, which were a lot more accurate than his teachers, and now everyone's heard of Johannes Kepler, and no one really cares about Tycho Brahe anymore. Thanks for watching. Next week, I'm giving you some actual canon backstories for extras in Lord of the Rings. Share this video with a friend of yours who either A, has a fake nose, or B, really has to pee, so that they don't die.